Aloha, everybody. I'm Eva and Jim. On this episode of the FFF Show, Faith and Family First, Jim Hochberg and I are going to talk about the Supreme Court leak that is still being talked about. I mean, it happened a while ago, but it's still being talked about. So you want to stay tuned because we're going to delve a little deeper into that. So let's chat about that. Jim, welcome to the show today.
Well, thank you. Hello.
For some reason, I don't know why it is, your shirt looks really familiar to me.
I only have two.
Oh, okay. All right. So
I mean, I'm poor. You're like oppressing me.
For those that are listening on KESU Radio and 1040 AM, you don't get to see Jim's beautiful Aloha shirts that he wore for the last short.
That's much better.
It is a great shirt. I do like it. I just thought it looked familiar. Although, you know,
I have a very nice wife that does the laundry on a regular basis, and I always get the shirt back clean.
Well, I think you look nice in that shirt. I'm just saying that men...
Does it match my eyes?
Does it... No, the question is not if it matches your eyes. Does it match your purse and your shoes? Does it match your purse and shoes, Jim? Your man
I'm
bag?
not identifying as a purse shoe dude.
You have a man bag.
It's black.
Admit it. You have a man bag, a man purse.
It's black.
I'm glad you don't have a man bun because then we'd be here all day. Okay.
You know what? My hair doesn't work like that.
You know what? For people that I've known Jim for a very, very long time, and the one thing I do know about Jim Hochberg is he has very curly hair, and if he went au natural, he would be you'd be rocking the fro.
To tell you the truth, in later years, my hair's getting a little bit weary.
Yeah.
It doesn't have the push it used to.
Yes. Well, a lot of people do not know I have naturally curly hair as well. I spend a lot of time flat ironing it. But, okay, the listeners are going, okay, can you guys get to the thing? Especially those of you that like to reach out to me, like to tell us.
So let's tie it into leaking. When you do your ironing of the hair, does water ever leak anywhere?
No, but if I tried to flat iron my hair with water, I think that would be a very interesting electrical experience. Let's just say that.
So
okay.
the leak.
Okay. So, Jim, I think it'd be really hilarious to start with a meme that the Babylon Bee put out on May 4th.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
Because it's just a great to talk about.
And if you're
leak.
on the radio, sorry.
Well, we'll read it to you for those on the radio. So the Babylon Bee did a great meme basically describing
they took
outrage.
a photo. They took a photo of the people protesting at the Supreme Court in the evening.
Because of the leak.
Because of the leak. Roe v. Wade upending draft opinion of the Supreme Court. So they had a photo of the people that were out there on the first night. Go ahead.
Now, the Chief Justice said that they're taking this leak very serious, and they claim they're going to get.
Meme first?
We do, but I just want to say that he claims
you're being ADHD.
No,
now.
I'm not being ADHD.
Boy, you are.
It will tie in. People like this. I don't like it. Jim's correcting me. People, come on, Team Eva, where are you? Make sure you comment below. Okay, so here is the actual meme from the Babylon Bee.
That's a real picture of what happened the night of the leak.
So the picture is real, but for those of you that do not know, the Babylon Bee is
it's on Twitter, and they're hilarious because it's a Christian comedy.
They are not news.
It's
they never
not
claim
real
to be news.
It's just satire.
They got fact checked, which is hilarious.
But anyway, so they just do funny stuff with real stuff. So go ahead.
So this is a great meme. So it has a picture again of the protesters because of the leak. And so the title says, "After chanting all night, crowd of worshipers still can't get Moloch to answer them."
And that's very funny if you're biblically literate.
It's all the people that read the Bible, they're kind of chuckling right now. But the first sentence of this little thing in the Babylon Bee is hilarious. So it says, "After gathering at the steps of the Supreme Court and chanting all through the night in support of abortion, a crowd of worshipers are still having a hard time getting their pagan god Moloch to hear them."
So what chapter in the Bible should we send people to read up on Moloch?
You tell me.
Oh, I would ask Janet.
We would need Janet. Yes, this is one of those times.
Janet knows.
Listeners and viewers, get there and comment immediately.
What is that tell scripture? Us in the comments.
Yeah, where does that come from in Scripture? Jim and I know many, many things, but we do not profess to have the Bible memorized.
No, I don't know addresses too well.
Yes.
I know John 3:16.
Yes. Okay, so the leak happened, right? And of course, immediately pro-life people began to celebrate. Now, we want to make it really clear that the position we took at the very beginning is that might be great, but a draft is just a draft is just a draft.
Well, the position that we want to take is when you're hearing on the news or on the radio or you're reading anywhere anything about this issue, unfortunately, you can't just take at face value what people are saying. It is blowing my mind, the level of dishonesty, misstatement, ill-informed conversations that are going on from the people in the news and from the people in the Congress and from the people in the parties. It's bizarre.
Well, and let's take abortion out of this discussion just for a second, because I think that most people realize how egregious this is. But for those that might be wondering, what's the big deal?
You mean egregious of the leak or egregious out of getting rid of Roe v. Wade? Because it depends on what side you're on, what you're egreging. No,
the leak, period.
Is egreging a word? I don't think so. I just made up a new non-word. Go ahead.
That's okay. At least you didn't say Calvary.
Boy.
For those of you that have no idea what we're talking about, you got to go back to our previous show where Jim corrects me. Anyway, so
she thinks Jesus died on a horse, I guess.
I mean to say cavalry, but when you speak quickly, you say Calvary,
Not if you go to church regularly.
Calvary. No, I know what the difference is, but my mouth is Portuguese and it works quicker than my brain sometimes. Okay, well, anyway, the leak itself is very egregious, because if you think of any case at all moving through the Supreme Court, as you know, there is a majority opinion. Sometimes it's unanimous, but you'll have
most of the time they're unanimous. Yeah. Actually, those don't make the news.
Yeah. So, but if there is a majority opinion and a minority opinion, there are drafts for both opinions that have to go around so that the other justices can decide if they're going to sign off on it. So we all should be appalled that the leak happened.
Okay, so we have a January 6th ad hoc committee in the Congress because they think people that went to the Trump rally on January 6th and then went to the Capitol were, quote unquote, insurrectionists. Insurrection means tearing down the government, okay? The Supreme Court and the federal courts in this country, according to this express language of the Constitution, have life tenure. They get appointed to the court for their whole life unless they are impeached, which has only happened a couple of times in the whole 200-something years of our country. So if you're going to do things to undermine the political neutrality and independence of the court system, which is why they get life tenure, I think that's insurrection. You're tearing down 1/3 of the federal government by branch, intentionally for political reasons, which is what insurrection is. That might be overstating it a little bit, but it makes the point that this leak isn't just somebody saying, oh, look at what they're thinking about doing. It is actually an attack on the entire federal judiciary from the head. How do you kill a snake? You cut off its head.
And that's what's interesting is a lot of the conversation has been, well, was it a conservative person that leaked it? Was it a liberal person that leaked it? The point is that Chief Justice Roberts has made it a point that they need to find out how this leak happened, and hopefully this person will get reprimanded. Now, whatever that means, I don't know, because they have, I guess, different levels of reprimand when it comes to court
so the separation of powers, the legislative branch, the executive branch, and the judicial branch, they cannot regulate each other.
Right.
So the executive branch has the Department of Justice, but the judicial branch has the U.S. Marshal Service. So the Chief Justice is not asking the Department of Justice and the FBI to investigate.
No, this is internal.
They're using their
Supreme
own
Court.
Police force, so to speak, the U.S. Marshal's Service, to do the investigation. The problem is the U.S. Marshal Service is not an investigatory body. It's a protection body. So they are there to protect the justices and the people in the buildings and all that stuff. So I'm not sure what kind of authority they have to punish anybody.
So I don't know. Here's my prophecy, and prophecy with a little p, is that if it is a conservative person that leaked it, we're going to know. They are going to be on the front page of every paper at some point.
Doxed.
Yes, they will. We're going to know where they live. We're going to know where they work. We may even have their email and phone number, right? If it was a liberal person that leaked this, I believe that we're never going to find out.
So here's an interesting thing. The Supreme Court of the United States has a lot of employees. It doesn't have an owner. Everybody that works there is an employee. Employment law allows you to fire people for violating the norms of the business or the workplace. But employment law doesn't let you talk about the firing of an employee. So we may not know.
Yeah. Well, unless it's a conservative. I'm telling you, is when do they follow?
Seriously.
No, but when do they follow the rules when it comes to somebody they consider pro-life?
Well, what I'm saying is I don't think Chief Justice is going to issue a news release that says, Jim Hochberg snuck in at night.
No. It's not going to. No. It will not be Chief Justice. I don't care who does it. It's not going to come from it's going to come from another leak. That's what's going to happen.
Probably.
It'll be, okay, we know who it is. Here's the person. Here's their address. Let's pick it at their house. Well, even though what has happened since the leak is the unbelievable amount of protests there was already protests.
It's not unbelievable. They have been, if you remember back in 2007, when Barack Obama and Hillary were fighting it out in the primary for president, there was a guy on Fox, and I can't think of his name, but he's now got the Blaze radio, the Blaze internet TV thing. What is that guy's? He was great. I can't remember his name. Come on, Hochberg. Anyway, he had the chalkboards, and he writes on the chalk.
Oh,
Glenn Beck. Yeah. So there was this guy, Glenn Beck, way back then, that was telling us, and I used to watch his show every night because it was great, that if Obama didn't win the presidency in 2008, there were going to be massive riots in the streets and all this stuff because he was getting intel secretly from somebody in Congress that knew. But it didn't happen the whole time that Obama was in. But what happened when Trump got in? Oh, my goodness. We had riots all across the country.
Because Orange Man is bad.
But it was like the same thing. So anyway, it's not surprising that this is getting that kind of protests because that's what the Democrats have been planning since 2007.
And that's what some are saying. Because again, we know that most of the people that are listening and watching this are here in the state of Hawaii, right? So we know that what we see in Hawaii isn't always what happens on the national level because churches were attacked on the national level. We didn't see it happen here in Hawaii. My counterpart, the Wisconsin Family Action, which is exactly what
on the show.
We had her on the show.
Juliana something.
Julaine Appling. She is my counterpart in Wisconsin. And her office got fired. And they're not even a pregnancy resource center. They're a family policy council. So, but they stand for life
and they testify.
So this isn't. So it isn't just about the pregnancy resource centers. This is about anybody who stands for life.
Correct.
That's how crazy this thing got.
And standing for life and being in favor of abortion. I'll be very, very generous. Like I said earlier, it has all these people with all these words that you can't just believe. And let's talk about some.
Well, yeah. So let's look at after the leak happened, immediately a lot of Hawaii's leaders did all of their Twitter posts. And so let's look at a couple of these Twitter posts because I think that again, because we are here in Hawaii, this is our home, this is our place. Let's look at what our leaders did as Jim drops papers and flings things and all of that. Those listening are going, what was that? I don't know.
That was little Marco.
That was Jim
getting a drink of water,
dropping things on the floor. Okay, so we're gonna.
This was my tweet. I can't lose that piece of paper.
You got to hold on to it because once we talk about some of these tweets, and it's going to come up. We're filling time right now because our wonderful producer's pulling it up for us. So Jim, you want to tap dance?
Sure.
Come on. Okay, my bad. I'll take full responsibility. No. Okay, so all right. So the first thing was our governor. So Governor Ige. Jim, you want to read for our listeners what Governor Ige's statement said?
So should I read it on the board or on
Read
the
it
thing?
from
Okay,
there.
so he says, Governor Ige's statement regarding Supreme Court draft on Roe v. Wade. This is my pastor voice.
Oh, God, I like it. No, do your priest voice.
The landmark Roe v. Wade decision made by the U.S. Supreme Court in 1973 was the right decision. Any action to overturn the ruling is wrong. The state of Hawaii and I personally support women's reproductive rights and a woman's right to make her own health care decisions. No matter what the Supreme Court decides, I will fight to ensure a woman's right to choose in the state of Hawaii, said Governor Ige.
You know, again, we are residents of the state of Hawaii, and the last time I checked, I'm part of that statement.
The Section 1, Article 1 of the state constitution says all political power
in the state
resides
belongs
in
to
the people.
And so when our governor says the state of Hawaii and I, you know,
He ain't speaking for me.
You know, and I think for pro-life people, you need to send a message to him. Now, do it with, again, as Jim and I always say, do it with grace. You know, you are representing Christ in all that you do in government. So at least be respectful, but you do have a right to say, Governor, I respectfully disagree with this. You do not speak for me. And that's why, like Hawaii Family Farm, we send out a lot of alerts on abortion issues to our congressional leaders, even though our congressional leaders are all in support of abortion. In fact, let's take a look at what Senator Mazie Hirono said. Go ahead, Jim.
So Senator Mazie Hirono expressed frustration with the Supreme Court ruling in a statement on the Senate floor. Okay, quote, apparently, Chief Justice Roberts is going to get to the bottom of the leak, which is being characterized as, quote, stunning thing that is happening. Well, you know what? I should think that we should be so much more stunned by the fact that the radical right-wing justices of the Supreme Court are prepared to eliminate a constitutional right that the women of this country have relied on for almost 50 years. What part of her statement is false? The Supreme Court is not eliminating anything.
Abortion is not outlawed.
They are only saying we don't want to be the people as unelected Supreme Court justices on the bench for life making a decision on this issue that for the entire 50 years has been very divisive in this country, and we're going to let the state legislatures make the law.
We are going to say this until the cows come home. If the Dobbs decision comes down in any way, shape, or form similar to the draft statement, abortion will still be legal in the states whose legislature decides to legalize it. Or they may outlaw, a state may outlaw it.
It's not going to be outlawed anywhere. I will prophesy that it won't be outlawed.
There'll be
anywhere.
Restrictions, and the states will have that right to do the restrictions based on the people who live in that constituency.
Why is our state senator, Mazie Hirono, lying on the Senate floor?
Because people in our state...
We shouldn't stand for it.
People in our state, and again, we say this, and I have to say it strongly. Senator Mazie Hirono, Senator Brian Schatz, Representative Kai Kahele, who is probably going to now, I think he put he's going to give Josh a run for his money. Yes, he's going to go. Or Representative Ed Case. They're our representatives. They work for us. So if they disagree with you on your position, you have a right to reach out to them and tell them that, again, with respect, but you should do it. They need to know that when they make statements like the governor that says, I'm speaking on behalf of the entire state of Hawaii, there needs to be people who are willing to say, accept me. Well, and when you vote, if you vote for somebody that's going to speak for you, you better make sure that when you're voting for them, you agree with their values. Yeah, and don't let people who disagree with you on this, because all of us have friends that are probably consider themselves pro-choice. Don't let them tell you that we're trying to outlaw abortion. Nothing's being changed. That is not the truth. And do not let other people to dictate to you what you believe. You need to make sure that you can stand very strongly on that which you believe. Now, another statement on this Twitter feed that I'd like to get your opinion on, Jim, is a woman right here in the state of Hawaii.
Delilah?
Yes. Let's talk about why.
So if you're not old enough to know who Tom Jones was, you probably never heard that song. If you are old enough, you may not have recognized the tune from the singing over here.
Well, I was purposely not being good because this is not a karaoke
well, do it well
night.
then.
I won't do it well. Oh, yes. And that Maisie statement, we got that from KITV4. They did their update on that day. And so they provided that. So we want to make sure we give the proper annotation to the right people. Okay, so this was
Hawaii
a tweet.
Delilah, not just Delilah.
So this was a tweet that came out on that day from Hawaii Delilah stands with Ukraine. That is her handle for those of you that want to look her up on Twitter. Jim, you got to read her statement.
So she says, now is a good time to remember that the other side is not, quote,
and Jim
pro-life,
is the other side.
Close quote. And she goes on to write, conservatives are, quote, pro-forced birth, close quote. And they oppose abortion because they want to punish women for daring to have non-reproductive sex. But you don't need an abortion if you don't have reproductive sex. So I don't get it. But then she goes on to say, striking down Roe is punitive.
Okay, and the reason
Can you get an abortion if you're not pregnant? I don't think so.
I'd like to see somebody try. What are they going to rip out? I don't know. That's just,
well, they might start from the back.
Maybe they should start with the mouth and rip out the tongue. I mean, okay. So anyway, we have the reason I chose this is because the leak caused people to go into meltdown on the other side. And when I say the other side now, I'm talking about people who consider themselves pro-choice. They are pro-abortion.
Well, they could be pro-choice and not melt down. The people that are melting down are the ones that, for whatever reason it is, believe that the draft opinion is changing anything.
Well, what's happening again, and we've seen this in so many different issues, Jim, is that when bad information gets out there, false information, the reason false information is put out there is to get a rise out of people. That's the whole purpose of doing it. So you get people upset, and then what do people do? They want to start their torches, and they want to start showing up, and that's exactly what happened here.
And they're showing up at the judges'
the
homes.
Supreme Court justices. These are only the ones who are considered to be conservative. They were doxxed.
Correct. And you know what? I just had a thought that I hadn't thought the entire time preparing for this or anything else. You know what's missing from the leadership in the state of Hawaii?
What's missing?
Lieutenant Governor Josh Green, I call on you to go on the news and decry protesting at residences.
He has.
Because you decry protesting at your own residence.
He has. He's on the record.
That.
Well, he's on the record.
Well, thank you then.
He's on the record for being, and we've been opposed to that too.
I'm always opposed to
here's
that.
the thing, you know,
if somebody protested at my neighbor's house, I wouldn't be able to hear my TV.
Well, that's what I mean. So you can say that you're showing up at somebody's house with pots and pans and all that because you're trying to make a statement. But the point is that there are other people who live in that same area who might have children that they're trying to put to bed. I mean, one of my daughters had colic. And when she was a baby, when she would get into these crying fits, it was, I remember I was a young mom at the time and it was very difficult for me. So let me tell you, if I would have finally gotten her to sleep and somebody would have picketed the neighbor's house because they were mad at the neighbor, I would not have been. So
have you ever had a cat?
I do now. I have cats now. This is a new thing, Jim.
Well,
yes.
I had a cat once that gave the definition to the word scaredy cat. Could you imagine having one of those cats with people banging pots and pans next
and dogs?
door?
I mean,
have a heart attack.
Well, we have to think about that. I mean, we have to be courteous, and as Christians, this is what makes us special as being Christians: is that we always
actually look outside ourselves.
We do.
We look outside ourselves.
It isn't just about us, and I think that's the important thing. But okay,
so I had one I wanted to talk about when you're done with this one.
I do want you, because you did refer. You actually went on Twitter. You
this
made
is the piece of paper I had to pick up.
Yes, so I want you to say that, but there is something. So after we'll let you do that. So we'll let you do that first because we are talking about that. And but there is something I want to ask you about. So go ahead.
Okay, so this was weird. This was on Twitter, and so I'm guessing that it's true, but it's a statement that supposedly made the night after the draft opinion was leaked from 53 Democratic state parties. but we only have 50 states. So I don't know exactly, but it says 53 Democratic state parties issue statement on leaked SCOTUS intent to overturn Roe v. Wade. And they talk about the shockwaves of Donald Trump's presidency resulting in the Supreme Court. And they say many of us live in states where abortion access has been overturned or torn apart by extremist Republicans who have no business interfering in personal health decisions. The Supreme Court did that in 1973. Abortion bans are not favored by a majority of Americans, and they never will be. There are completely the opposite polling in the very, very recent past. They are, however, supported by an extremist group of right-wing primary voters and donors, which is why the GOP continues to fight to restrict abortion access nationally. Then they say, in the wake of this decision, the Supreme Court's anticipated opinion will signal a return of power to the elected representatives of each state and territory. Yeah. Therefore, it's important now more than ever that we protect and exercise those rights that remain intact. Our First Amendment rights to associate and to vote representatives into office who will stand firm and protect their constituents from the threats and whims of conservatives. I agree with that. Across America, our state Democratic parties will work tirelessly to recruit, train, and support Democratic candidates for state and federal office who will fight for the right to abortion. We encourage our federal legislators to codify Roe v. Wade. So our Democratic people joined in this.
And so all of them, let's talk about that.
They said, oh, yeah, we agree with this. So
yes.
I tweeted, and I don't usually do this. I usually just read stuff, but I don't take the time to type anything. But I said, why don't you tell the people of Hawaii the truth? In 2008, the Hawaii legislature codified Roe in Hawaii statute so that the Supreme Court opinion will have absolutely no effect on abortion access in Hawaii. You're not serving Hawaii population by ginning up unnecessary anger. That was my responsive tweet. Didn't get any response to mine.
Well, and that kind of ties into what I'd like to get your thoughts on. So as you know, we're running out of time as we normally do on the show. But one of the things that I think has come up because of the picketing that's being done at the justice's home is whether it's legal or not to do so, right? So now most of these justices that are being doxxed live in Maryland or Virginia. Right. So they're just outside
most
of Washington,
of the justices
DC.
live
right.
outside of D.C. because they work in D.C.
Right. And so
D.C. is not a place a person like that would probably want to live.
So now I guess there's, according to one of the articles I read, and I'll put the link below, is that
for people on the radio, sorry.
Yeah, but I will read it to you. So this there's a law in the books in Virginia that says that, quote, picketing outside residences causes emotional disturbance and distress to the occupants, end quote. So whether
but there's also a federal statute that says that it's illegal, it's a crime to attempt to interfere with the federal judiciary in a going case by pretty much any means. I mean, you obviously can't give them money, bribing, but you're not supposed to try to intimidate them. And being outside their home is pretty intimidating.
So here's the bottom line. Number one, you want to make sure that you raise your voice. You have a right to connect with your representatives locally and nationally, especially on issues like this. If they don't speak for you, make sure that with respect, you let them know you disagree for sure. But at the same time, stay plugged into this show because Jim Hochberg and I are going to continue to talk about issues that not only affect people across the nation, but affect us right here in the beautiful state of Hawaii. So like, subscribe, share, hit that notification button, and give a shout out to KESU Radio and 1040 AM K-Light. And for those of you on podcasts, Spotify and iTunes, we'll see you next time. And you can hear us next time. Mahalo for joining us.
Aloha.